Yes.
Yes.
Excellent boat.
How's that?
Oh, that's better.
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 All right. Well, okay. First, this is a presentation that we gave to the Puget Sound Cruising Club about 2 years ago. This is a group, it's a sailing club of people who like to do blue water cruising. And we were members for a number of years, but we were also boatless during that time. And we just went to tease ourselves and wonder if we were ever going to get another boat again after selling our boat in Florida when we moved to Seattle in 1998. So we had a boat, we lived on it down in Florida, and then sold it before we came to Seattle to the Pacific Northwest because it wasn't a blue water Pacific Northwest type of boat. It was a shoal draft, perfect for the Keys in the Caribbean. So we went boatless for about 12 years, I think, something like that. And actually it was 13 years. I've got some notes here, 13 years. And we saw this FAR, it was like hull number 3 or 4, 5, back in 2007, and liked it quite a bit, but it was way out of our price range. And then the recession hit in 2008 and 9. And in 2011, we were actually able to buy a boat. It's hull number 20. And so it happened to be sitting in Mystic, Connecticut was the only problem. So we were looking at different ways to get the boat here, and it was really too big to practically put it on road or rail. We could have put it on a ship, or we could have paid somebody, and we said, wait a second, why don't we just sail it to Seattle ourselves? And so it wasn't actually a planned deal until we realized, hey, we can just go do this. And so over a year and a half, roughly a year and a half, we sailed it with just friends, whoever wanted to show up and go on a leg, 10,000 miles, nautical miles, and about 22 legs with a bunch of different countries. And so this talk is about that trip. So, and I guess if you have any questions, you can just, raise your hand or stop me or whatever, and we'll go from there. In 2008, I retired from an aerospace business working for Honeywell, and started a consulting company in 2010. And that gave me the freedom to do this year and a half trip using satellite phone from the boat. I could actually continue to do some of my work, which was pretty nice. So anyway, I'll show you the overview of the route and the dates. So the upper right-hand corner of your screen there shows September 2011 was where we started in Mystic, and these are kind of actual track points that we traveled through. And most people would see if I can show you this, would sail out here from, say, Mystic or New York and go out here to Bermuda, and then sail down and come down. And this scale looks kind of weird. Bermuda is actually a lot closer than it looks to the North Atlantic coast of the US. The reason people do that is because the Gulf Stream flows up through here, and it carries a lot of heat with it, and it blocks bad fronts that are coming from west to east across the US. So if you're on the east side of the Gulf Stream, you've got pretty smooth sailing all the way down into the Caribbean. But we had, we were raised, Debbie and I were raised in Florida. I was brought up in Miami, and she was raised in Daytona Beach. And so we decided to sail down the coast and do a pit stop, about a month provisioning pit stop in Miami. And then we would head out from Miami and go down the Bahama chain and then to the Caribbean. So that was the plan. Then we, of course, had to go down through the Caribbean, through the Panama Canal. And we attempted to do, and I'll show you some routes, just as just an overview. We attempted to do nonstop from Panama to Hawaii, way out here. We started out, but we had some trouble with wind, even though we were using the almanac for that. We didn't find the wind we wanted, so we ended up diverting back into San Diego. and then coming up the coast.
Hey, Ben, could you give us a little color on the Caribbean before you go all the way to San Diego?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is just a rough overview.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I'm going to just switch, and Debbie just joined here.
Hello.
Hi, Debbie.
Hey, Debbie. Nice seeing all of you.
So here we're coming down the coast, and we are at the Annapolis Boat Show, and we held up in Annapolis.
Is that you?
It was hurricane season, and we actually stayed at a friend's house, behind a friend's house who had a dock there, and we kept our boat behind their house.
And the parent live here.
Yeah, the parents actually of these folks actually live here on Orcas Island, not too far from here. So the gentleman in the picture next to Debbie is Bruce Farr. He's actually the designer of our boat. And he's pretty famous sailing race boat designer. And he just happened to be at the boat show. We were anchored right off the show there. So we got to meet him and talk to him about our boat.
Well, he saw the boat at the dock too,
Right.
in the backyard. And, he told his wife he always wanted that, but he couldn't afford it. That's what he said.
Yeah. He took a racing hull and put a pilot house on it. And so it's a performance hull, but with a pilot house with creature comforts. Okay, so now we fast forward we're getting there to the Caribbean. We're on our way. So we sailed nonstop from Chesapeake Bay, nonstop to Miami. It's about 1,000 nautical miles. Each of these legs was about 1,000 nautical miles that we were doing.
With a little fire on board.
Yeah, we had a fire, actually, forgot about that. Electrical fire in the middle of the night to deal with. But I had really good crew on that particular leg, engineers and people that were good at troubleshooting such things. But we did have to turn all the electronics off because we knew it was electrical fire, which meant no running lights, no compass light, no lights. So I was, being the captain, I was at the helm steering the boat, looking at my compass because there was no reference. We were way out at sea. We were, a couple 100 miles off of New York when that happened.
New York?
Yeah, off of New York. And because it was New York to Annapolis that happened. And so I'm pretty sure.
No, it was from Annapolis to Miami.
Okay, you're right.
Because my brother texted me and said, don't contact Ben right now because there's smoke coming out from the boat. And I was like, what? So I'm steering the boat with a flashlight in my teeth to see the compass. And that went on for a couple hours while they were troubleshooting and found the problem, which was a refrigerator failure. So, okay, we'll keep going. And so this picture was taken right after Christmas down in Miami, and you can see it was really cold down there at that time of the year. And we're getting ready to blast off to the Bahamas, the three of us. That's Shannon, our daughter. So we sailed down to through the Bahamas, and then onto the British Virgin Islands. And so what you're looking at is a map here of the British Virgin Islands. And this is a kind of a circumnavigation of Tortola that we did, hitting a lot of different sites around the island of Tortola, which is really a fantastic I love Tortola.
All of these stops are these places where we stopped and anchored were just totally cool. And we kept the boat there for a couple of months, actually. And Shannon actually came down for spring break with one of her girlfriends and sailed with us. Debbie and I did a circumnavigation, just the two of us, and then we redid that trip with the two girls on board and stopping at all these great bars. Okay, so fast forward, we come down through the Caribbean island chain, and the lowest island, which you can't see on this particular chart, is Grenada, which you've probably heard of, but that's at the very bottom. And Grenada is getting closer and closer to the equator, and many people consider it fairly safe for hurricanes. But there was a hurricane that did actually hit there after a whole bunch of boats went there to hide from the hurricanes, and it destroyed a lot of boats. So it wasn't 100% foolproof. So we didn't stay there very long. We decided for hurricane season to go even further south and ended up in this place called Bocas del Toro, Panama, which is right in here, if you can see my cursor. And I'll show you a picture of Bocas del Toro, but that was really our staging place to get ready to go through the Panama Canal. As you all know, Panama Canal was turned back over to the country of Panama by the United States some number of years ago.
Jimmy Carter 2006.
Pardon?
Jimmy Carter did it 2006, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's, oh, sorry, it couldn't be, but he did it. So it was, yeah, 18. Sorry to talk.
Yeah, no, that's thank you, Joe. In any case, a lot of U.S. people worked for the Panama Canal Authority, the U.S. Panama Canal Authority, and they didn't want to leave, so they stayed and now work for the Panamanian Panama Canal Authority. And you can hire these people as consultants to get you through the Panama Canal. They'll do all the paperwork and grease all the skids, so you don't really have to go to ashore to any of the offices there. And some of these places are not exactly that safe, like Cologne, for example, up here at the top, is a pretty rough town. And you have to go to a number of offices there to get paperwork done. So we avoided all that and spent, I think it was probably somewhere like $700 or something like that, which included all the fees. It included rental of tires
To go around the boat.
to be used as fenders, because you might be rafted up with a ship or rafted against the side of the lock.
Or
Locks going
if you
through.
lose control of your lines.
Right, right. And so this will show you a lot more photographs going through the Panama Canal. While we went through what's really known as the old locks, the old canal, and they were, at the time we went through there, building a new wider canal, which you all have heard about, and it is open and operating now, which is a number of feet wider than the old canal that the smaller boats like us would go through. So now mega ships can go through there. And we saw evidence of the construction of this new canal in some places along our route through there.
But I have to say, I got the whole boat ready for this trip through the Panama Canal because it was going to be special for 6 of us. And we had known each other for 35 years and had not seen each other for about that long, some of us.
3 couples.
Yeah, 3 couples. And I went from top to bottom and got all the staterooms ready. And then we came back here for, I don't know, a couple months before we went back down again. And when we all arrived and got on the boat, it was mildewed from top to bottom.
Oh, no.
Every can of anything.
It was a mess.
It was a mess.
And that was at a marina in Bocas del Toro, which is so close to the equator that it's a super humid place. And we were afraid to leave the air conditioning on because we weren't sure, if that would be a smart thing to do. So, and then,
Everything else is mobile.
say that again?
No, I just was asking, I didn't hear the statement about what happened to the cans.
So I told him.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
That's okay. Okay, so as we were flying back and forth, we got to know the local airline there called Nature Air, which operates down in that region. And they use these turbo
Wow, look how beautiful that is.
2-engine aircraft. And we would fly from Miami to San Jose, Costa Rica. So we would fly from Seattle to Miami and then Miami to San Jose, and then get on one of these airplanes, twin-engine airplanes, and fly to the various places we were going. So wherever the boat was, we could pretty easily get an airplane like this and fly from the center hub, which was San Jose, Costa Rica. And quite often you had volcanoes and cool things to look at. So this picture here is actually a picture of Bocas del Toro, where the boat got all the humidity. And this place is like a bachelor's paradise. We found a lot of guys down there with sport fish boats, which obviously aren't in this picture, living down there, having the life, fishing, chasing girls, and beer is a buck of beer. So we
Where's that place?
Ben, did bachelorhood appeal to you?
No, absolutely not.
Right answer.
He asked me if bachelorhood was of any interest to me. I said, absolutely not. Okay, so then we moved the boat over to a marina in Cristobal, Panama, which is right across the canal entrance from Cologne. And this is a little enclave. It's got a, fence gated entry and all this stuff, and you have mega yachts and whatnot. And there are people that have either just gone through the canal going into the Caribbean, or people waiting to go through the canal towards the Pacific. And the interesting thing to note here is that the boat that you see right on the other side of the dock from Dunvegan is a boat that had this really gnarly looking guy on there. He looked pretty bad.
And all along the side of his boat were bags of garbage.
Yeah, it was like, this guy looked like, scumbag. And so we didn't talk to him for the first day or so, but then we finally got to talking to him, and it turned out that boat was in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and they hired him to teach Johnny Depp how to act like a pirate.
And he was very interesting. We spent hours on his boat talking to him and drinking, and he was just a wonderful character.
Yeah, even though he so it's not somebody that you would just go up and approach, but we doubted his story about the Johnny Depp business, and then he started pulling out all these photographs with himself and Johnny Depp. So that was kind of cool.
That would be really cool.
So here's some facts about the Panama Canal. You knew that I think the French tried to do Panama Canal and failed, and then the U.S. finally came in and actually made the Panama Canal, but I'll just let you read the highlights there. And this, of course, is talking about the original Panama Canal, not the new one.
And I believe, if my memory is correct, when they did move all the people out of the interior, out of the way, it took 7 years to naturally fill by rain and
the lake
and river.
We'll explain how the canal works for people who don't know. The last 3 bullets on this chart talk about the new canal, and give you an idea there. Okay.
If I can say something, our neighbor and yacht club member that we introduced, Alan Krauss, if you want to hear ever from him, he was closely involved. He has a wonderful movie when they were widening the canal. He was there till the end for several years. Alan Krauss.
Yes, I remember meeting him on the new member cruise, and he was involved in the ships that were used to actually bring the doors for the new locks for the new canal across the ocean to Panama at the time. And that would be a great presentation. We could hear about that, because these doors, as you can imagine, are humongous.
It would be because he landed us and showed it to us on island early, because the street from us, it's like DVD that is 20 minutes long, where he is actually pictured, but all the other are Spanish speaking people that were in charge of the canal, and they were all Hispanic.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And I appreciate you mentioning that, because that would really be a good presentation for the club to hear. So here's a map.
If people buy bigger boats, they maybe use it. And our yacht club members, it's just a bad joke.
This is kind of a technical picture. On the top, you see the plan view of the canal through the through lakes and things. And then the very bottom view shows the vertical profile where you can see what's going on. So summarizing it, if you're going from the Atlantic to the Pacific, you'll notice that the two oceans, the Atlantic and Pacific, actually aren't that far apart from a sea level, sea level perspective. But to get across the isthmus there, you actually go up with 3 locks. And then you go across Gatun Lake, which is a man-made lake, and then you go down 3 locks to get down to the Pacific. And so they had to cut this channel through there, and the Gatun Lake was actually a valley at one point, and they used the rivers there with people, villages. And they used the rivers and they dammed up the lake so that they would have essentially a huge water reservoir that is used to actually power the canal. So think of it this way: if you're down at the Atlantic side and you're wanting to go up the locks, you have to put water in the lock. Once you get put in a lock, you have to add water to it to raise your boat. And that water is coming from Gatun Lake, which is up higher. When it's time to, on the other side, to come back down through the 3 locks on the other side, on the Pacific side, the water is just expended, it's just wasted, and it goes into the Pacific. And the opposite is true if you're going the other way from the Pacific to the Atlantic. The new, the new canal, the wider canal actually recaptures that water in some way. So it doesn't use as much water, doesn't require as much water, even though there's a much larger volume of water. And I don't know, that's probably something we could ask about if we had a presentation on the new canal of that recapture process. Okay, so for small boats, and I say boats that are 60 foot or shorter, of course we were 50 feet, you have what's called an advisor on your boat with a radio. He works for the Panama Canal Authority, and he talks to the air traffic control center, so to speak, of the canal, and guides you through the 3 locks going up into Gatun Lake.
And you feed them.
You feed them, you give them coffee and sandwiches and whatnot, and you tip them. And then they are picked up by a boat because you're anchored in Gatun Lake, and you spend the night in the lake. And the next morning, a different guide comes from the other side in a boat very early, and you start out again with a different guide. And of course, you're feeding him too. And then he guides you down the last 3 locks. And if you're bigger than 60 feet, you actually have a pilot on your boat who's, again, an employee of the Panama Canal Authority, and they're paid to actually drive your boat. And they have legal authority to drive your boat through, and you don't have any choice about it.
So can I talk about the monkey fist and everything?
Yeah, sure.
So when you get into the locks, we read the paperwork, which was like a 1/2 inch thick, and it looked to us like the water was coming up out of the center, so it would be even for all 4 people on the lines. And so I was on one of the stern lines with another guy, and then there was another couple on the bow.
The lines, just so you know, the 4 lines are used so that the people on your own boat are tensioning those lines to keep your boat centered in the lock, or, you know.
And it's about, I don't know, how many feet a line?
It's 300 feet a line.
Each. And so they throw you a monkey fist, you tie it to your line, they bring it up and tie it off, and then you control it as the water is coming in or going out. But it comes in so fast. What happens is you get really tired over time. And by the last, I guess the last lock of that day, the first day, I was barely maintaining, and I had my foot on the lines, and I have all this line underneath the rest of my feet. I fell at one point, and I ended up with a bruise about this big on my hip. But Dieter kept telling me to tie it off, but I couldn't tie it off because if I tried to tie it off, I was going to lose control. And what we found out was that water was on that side was really strong, and it pushed the boat away from the wall. And if I did let go of the line, the back end of the boat would have swung around and hit the opposite side of the lock. So he was hollering at me to do it, and I couldn't. And so he tied his off and came over to help. And what he discovered was it was much harder on our side than it was on their side. So
we had the girls on the wrong side.
So we ended up switching.
The trick is that the diagrams all show the water coming into the locks from underneath, from the center. And what we experienced was the water was coming in from one side of the lock or the other, and it was tending to push your boat to the other side. That was what we learned.
I have a question. You don't go alone. I mean, there must be all sizes of boats, or it's not just boat.
Yeah, we'll show you some pictures. In fact, we were alone, but with a big ship in the lock with us, behind us, going up. going up to Gatun Lake, but then coming down, we were asked to have a smaller sailboat raft with us. And so now you had that boat with a crew that was hired by the captain. He was by himself, so he hired some crew. He had his advisor. I have my crew and my advisor. And so now you have 2 advisors and 2 captains, and which equals 4 captains. And he starts yelling at me to do something, and we have the much bigger boat. And he's rafted tightly to our boat. And so I'm doing the driving basically with our motor. And he had some disagreement about what I was doing, but I was doing what our pilot wanted me to do. And finally I told him, that he needed to calm down. And so he kind of hushed up. And then after we got through the whole ordeal and got offloaded into the Pacific, I brought out a bottle of whiskey and gave everybody a shot.
Before we separated, yeah.
All that was in Spanish, or they spoke English, of course, right?
No, he was actually from the Florida coast in a much smaller sailboat. And so he was American. Yeah. And the advisors all speak English. The one surprising thing is our second advisor, on the second day, we were coming down, coming into the Pacific down the 3 locks, and we're in between some locks going along, and all of a sudden this big tugboat starts.
That was when we got out. Yeah.
It was once we got out.
Yeah.
This big tugboat starts backing down on our boat at full speed. And he's got this big wake off the back of his boat, off the stern, and he's coming right at us. And then we hear this bullhorn, and it was our pilot from the prior day, our advisor from the prior day, also as a tugboat captain. And he was just goofing with us.
Yeah, and he was saying, "Hey, Ben."
He was saying, "Hey, Ben," over his megaphone. We know what was going on. Are there any questions on this diagram? There was one other thing in Gatun Lake was pretty cool. They have these, what kind of monkeys?
Oh, I forget.
I think it's howling monkeys. And they're called howling monkeys. And at night, you'd be anchored out there and you couldn't really see them, but they sounded like screeching birds, or like birds.
And it was really hot, and we wanted to go swimming, but they have crocodiles there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, there was rules, no swimming. We had our AIS on, and Dunvegan is the red boat. So we're actually kind of anchored there in the Gatun Lake. And you can kind of see the amount of boat traffic that's going on there. And the boats, of course, with the black dots are anchored. The boats with no black dots are moving. But you can see how busy it is.
And the big ships, they have mules that bring them through. And actually, you can see the mule right here above their heads to the left.
Yeah,
up on the wall.
It's a term that's applied to a locomotive kind of it's diesel driven, I think, and it basically is on rails on each side of the locks, and it actually has power so they can position the ships any place they want on the big ships.
And there's 4 of them, 2 on each side for that big ship that you see there.
Yeah.
And so they don't handle the lines like you see this couple here on the front doing.
Yeah, you can see how tight those lines look there. And you can also see in this picture how turbulent the water is.
Yeah.
And this is the serene Gatun Lake after we, got through the first 3 locks. And this is the lake with the crocodiles and the howling monkeys. And this is the next day. We're going down now to the Pacific, and you can see we've got a pretty huge boat behind us.
And they have a mule there off to the left.
Yeah. So from the Panama Canal, we spent some time at a marina just right up, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but right in this area. Very nice. And we went into Old Town Panama.
And that is where all the fraud happened on every single ATM, every single charge card. And people were shopping after 14 days, $2,000 at Oscar de la Renta. There were hotels in Europe. There were restaurants and auto parts stores in Tennessee.
It's not a good place to use credit cards or your bank card. You have to be super careful down there. Okay, so then we sailed from there. We wanted to go to some islands and just check out some things. So we went to the Las Perlas Islands, and they're famous because of the pearls. And that's super unique because one island is really fixed up nice. There's some estates on there. They've got a little airstrip. And it's a place where the heads of state of the South American countries go for conferences. And then you sail over to the next island and it's just dirt poor. And you got all these natives that are living off the sea.
Well, it's not, I wouldn't look at it as poor. I would just look at it as like indigenous people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really reminded me of New Guinea. The men were not real tall, and they had this bowl cut shape haircut, and they were very modest, and they didn't speak English. And at one point we pulled up in this area and dropped the anchor, and we could see their village, and we could see them going back and forth to various islands with their guns and their dogs. We figured they were hunting. And at one point they came up to the boat and basically told us that we needed to go away.
We needed to move the boat.
Yeah, and we were the two of us were trying to figure out how far they wanted us to go.
But we pulled anchor and moved the boat, and then the tide went out and we were anchored right over a big rock.
There were all these rocks everywhere.
It wasn't on the chart.
But they also came up the next day to give us these right here. And he was so modest, he was in his underwear. And when I came up, he turned and faced the other way. He was very embarrassed. And so we saved bags of money. They wanted bananas, but we didn't have bananas. All we had was chocolate and money. And so we gave them their currency in little bags and chocolate. And they didn't know what the chocolate was. And so I had to eat it first for them to understand that it was edible. And they were very sweet people. And they were very funny, and we went to their village and we hung out. And at one point, they went and got us these beautiful oranges they were growing on the mountaintop, and there wasn't a blemish on them. And then we asked them about pearls, and they brought out this glass, and it had something in it, but I didn't know there were pearls in it, so I got ready to drink it. And then I saw the pearls. And the men didn't say anything, but the women started giggling. So it was kind of, so they were very nice people.
Yeah, super nice. And
Yeah.
they had a couple of pigs, I guess, that they were
On the beach.
tethered to these long lines on the beach.
Yeah.
So it's pretty basic. And this bucket right in the foreground is full of lobsters that we traded for. So that was kind of nice. Now this is sailing from the Las Perlas Islands to Golfito, Costa Rica. And I just took this picture because it was kind of cool with the heeling of the boat is all that is. Just to give you an idea of the boat heel. And okay, so we sailed, and this is essentially Golfito right here. Panama Canal is back up in there. So we sailed around from the Las Perlas Islands to Golfito and stayed in Golfito for, I think we actually left the boat and flew back to Seattle for a month and then came back down there. And we were looking at different alternatives, and I wanted to sail the boat directly to Hawaii and then come back up around the top. That was their original plan. And it's 4,200 nautical miles, Great Circle from Golfito to Hawaii. And so we used the Cornell cruising guide, which is a wind and current guide. And it said November is the best time of the year to do such a trip. So we trusted that and headed out. And I was keeping a spreadsheet of distance remaining and fuel remaining because we were having a motor quite a bit. Not up in here because you get these super winds right up in there. We had great sailing up in this area. But once we got offshore, the wind just kind of died. And so we discovered that we can't trust the Cornell cruising guide. I still have a nice copy if anybody wants to look at it. It's pretty cool. But I think the global warming has had a huge disruption effect on his almanac, if you will. So we ended up putting back into Mexico for fuel. We refueled and started out for Hawaii again.
phone because
and
the speaker wasn't working.
basically tried it again and aborted and ended up
Not
pulling
much
back
fun.
into San Diego. Is what actually happened. And we spent, we'd never been to San Diego before, so we enjoyed San Diego. And then we
People too.
ended up just coming up the coast.
But in San Diego,
Oh, let me,
Okay.
yeah, before we get to San Diego. So we're offshore now, and there's a
booby.
booby. And it's a yellow-footed booby. You've heard of blue-footed boobies in the Galapagos. Well, these were yellow-footed boobies, and they were super friendly, and they would come and land on the boat, and they weren't afraid of you or anything. And sometimes they would spend the night on the boat and then take off in the morning and go out for breakfast, and then they come back and land on the boat again. So I think I have I don't know if this will work. Whoops, nope. Let me see, hang on a second. This may not work. Nope.
No. Okay.
Ben, why did you fly up to Seattle and how long were you there?
Say that again?
How long, why did you fly to Seattle and how long were you there before you went back?
Oh, we had a number of flights back to Seattle,
Yeah.
partly because of my work and partly because of our daughter being alone at home.
She was having big parties while we were gone, and we had to hire babysitters and stuff like that.
Or cops?
Yeah,
You want me to tell the story?
no.
No. I mean, the other story, San Diego.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, while we were in San Diego, I don't know if you remember, but I was watching the weather because this was going to be a big sail for me. I wanted to see how the boat handled in bad weather. And so we were going to have 20-foot seas about 11 seconds apart. And so I don't know if you remember that man that was killing people. And he eventually went to, I think it was Bear Mountain, and the police ended up ramming the cabin and setting it on fire, but he killed himself there. And he was a disgruntled person, ex-military, et cetera. He killed a couple police officers or something and whatnot. So we're at Shelter Bay. I knew all about this person because I had read the 40-page manifesto and I had been following him from Seattle. And but I wasn't paying attention to where he was compared to where the boat was. So we're at Shelter Bay and we're in a little pub there looking at the news that was having dinner, and the music was playing. So the sound was muted, but they said he was in Shelter Bay, this person.
He was believed to be in our marina.
And then we looked out and there were helicopter spotlights and there were police in the water with spotlights and everything. He had hogtied this man earlier that day. And I already knew he was terribly dangerous. And I also knew the police were dangerous because they were actually firing on civilians, thinking that they were that it was this guy. And so I said to Ben, how are we going to get back to the boat? And he said, well, we're just going to, do it and lock it up.
We're going to go fast.
We're going to go fast, he said. So we get to the gate to go onto the dock, and there's this lady and she's getting ready to walk her dog. And I said, you might not want to walk your dog right now because this man is supposed to be here and he's very dangerous, and so are the police. And then there were two men that were getting ready to fish. And so I said the same thing. So we get back to the boat and we button it up. And the last couple of days, we had been looking at this boat next to us. They had this little fake fireplace in it and everything. It was really cool, but we never ran into them. And so we're on the boat and in our pajamas now, and the lights are out, and we're reading, and the curtains are pulled, and all of a sudden we hear bang, bang, bang. And I think it's him. And I'm telling Ben, no, he's very dangerous.
So I went up there in my skivvies, and there was a helicopter with a spotlight and two guys with flak jackets with automatic weapons and spotlights and everything. And
huge guns.
This lady next door had not seen any activity on her boat because we'd been in Seattle, and all of a sudden there was activity. So she called the cops on our boat.
The lady with the dog.
And the cops thought we were the bad guy. And so we had to explain, no, we're not the bad guy.
And I was so afraid of the police because,
Yeah.
you know, they were buying new vehicles for people because they were shooting them up. And so anyway, that was our excitement there
Yeah,
in
yeah.
San Diego.
So here we have a little bit of wind where we, you know, we're still, you know, trying to do Hawaii, but we aborted that. And I have some videos here, but it doesn't look like I'm able to call them up. So this is my crew in San Francisco, and we're leaving San Francisco. You can see the bridge in the back, and the person who took the picture is a very close friend of ours who had flown over from Germany to make this leg from San Francisco to Orcas Island nonstop. And so we left May 2013 and sailed directly to Orcas Island.
Well, you're supposed to come to
What?
Lake Washington, but we were in the middle of tearing the house up to get it ready to sell.
Yeah. So we just came on into Rosario,
Yeah.
and anyway, so
And met Rosario's for the first time.
yeah. And so I have one additional picture on here. We'll just show you. This is where we took the boat subsequently up to Sawyer Glacier up in Alaska, 2014. And we hope to go again, not this summer, but this next summer after, with a few boats that might want to go from the yacht club.
But we were told that in the last, since 2014, the glacier has receded more than a mile.
Yeah. So are there any questions that weren't already
And
asked?
what was the cost to go through the Panama Canal for your boat?
It was around $700 that included all their fees and the consultant that we paid, the American consultant that did all the legwork and the paperwork for us. But that was, you know, back in 2000, what was 11 or 12. So it's probably gone up since then, I guess. But it's definitely worth doing it. It's a, you know, once in a bucket, you know.
It was a highlight of
Yeah.
the trip, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's pretty reasonable for
Sure,
what
That's
you
the
got off in
south side
the
of Juneau, 50 miles south of Juneau.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff and Debbie.
Yes.
Yeah, how come you guys seem to attract criminals?
We did what?
How can we attract criminals?
It was weird.
I don't know. It's a good question. This guy, just a little more to that story is we wanted to haul our boat in San Diego to get some work done on the bottom. And so we hauled out, and this guy, the bad guy that eventually killed himself, he had hogtied this guy on his boat with a computer cable
In Shelter Bay.
In Shelter Bay, because he wanted him to take him to Mexico. And the guy was stalling, and his wife wasn't on board, thankfully. But what he did was he took his lines, his dock lines, and he purposely threw them in. It was a power boat, and he fouled his own props with the dock line so that he couldn't go anywhere. So the bad guy tied him up and fled. And so after I hauled out in the marina, his boat was the very next boat to get hauled out in the yard. And so I got to meet this guy and talk to him all about it. And he was from South America. He wasn't even an American. He was from South America. And he was telling me he was just so thankful that his wife wasn't on board, because it could have been a lot worse, you know, with this bad dude.
There were a lot of that was quite a story, really.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the only person I can imagine attracting this much trouble is Johnson.
Is who?
Johnson.
Jeff
Johnson. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he attracts like glue.
shady characters.
Hey, nice program, you guys. It's wonderful. And thanks for contributing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's good to see your face, Chris. I'm glad you joined in.
Yeah, we're in Long Beach, Washington, watching the storms. It was great.
Oh, sweet. We were thinking about going down there.
I have one
Long
question.
Yeah.
I have one question. Did you stop on the on Atlantic side in Gulf of Mexico at those San Blas Islands? Those, it's, you know, when you cruise the Panama Canal, all of those we did, Holland, America. Did you anchor for them, or did you even know?
Yes,
San
we
Blas
knew.
Islands just before you enter. It's really a tourist hangout. Very
Yes,
nice.
we knew about them and wanted to stop there, but we were kind of on a schedule because of hurricane season. And so we decided to go ahead and get into our marina and skipped the San Blas Islands And that's really the main reason why we stopped at Las Perlas Islands, which, to be honest with you, are much less known from a tourist perspective. So we didn't see really any tourists in our gun-coaling through the Las Perlas Islands. But I know the San Blas Islands are very beautiful. So if we went back, we definitely want to go back there.
We just saw there were a bunch of cruising, our size that we sell boats anchored just off, bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I made mistake that Panama Canal, that was 1976, that Jimmy Carter, gave them the freedom. And then the Russians, I think, won the operation. I don't know who operates it. Do you know who operates it now? Which nation? Panama Canal?
Panama runs it now.
Yep. Yeah, rents it out because it was operated for a while by us. Yeah. Okay, completely there then.
Yeah, I think the Russians were trying to do an entirely separate canal. Either the Russians or China was trying to do an entirely separate, different canal in a different part of the isthmus. Yeah.
Well, they bid for it, nations, when it was given by Carter, and I think they operated it for a while. So thank you. Okay. Thank you for explanation. It was a wonderful program. We enjoyed. How come there are not 100 people from the club watching?
One thing I forgot to say is I was able to score some authentic Cuban cigars on the trip, of course, which came in nice.
We were there a couple of years ago in Havana and the other 3 places. Interesting.
Hey, Ben, I got a question. You were saying that up to 14,000 vessels transit the canal a year. That's like, a place must look like I-5 in Seattle at rush hour. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's even more because they've got 2 canals. They got the bigger one. So, yeah. And if you look at that traffic, that guy there gives you an idea. There's just boats everywhere.
I see.
The good thing is that, they maintain separation. They do a real good job of controlling the flow because boats are going both directions because they don't want to waste any water when they're raising and lowering these locks if they don't have to. So
they tell you exactly when to come in, and you station yourself as close as you can to only use certain number of minutes to get in.
I would say it's probably about a 3-month advanced booking process with the agent.
You get to the other side and everyone is on this upper gallery of the building, clapping and flags are flying.
And you do get a certificate, and we have that certificate on the boat. And it's what they do is they come on board and they measure the volume of your boat. And like cubic yards or cubic meters. And they use that to decide how much to charge you because theoretically your volume is how much cargo or whatever you could carry through there.
But if you did go, I would go through with a different bank account with a certain amount of money in there and certain charge cards and not tied to your
main account.
Yeah. Because it was
Ben McLeod's
very
account.
bad.
What's that?
I'll use Ben McLeod's account.
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to get to Hawaii and it's now Saturday and I've spent half a day at the bank switching accounts and, we were selling a piece of property and all this other stuff. And now everybody is closed and I decided just at midnight just to log on and see if there was any activity. And now they were banging on his cards and I was just frantic. And
she was back in Seattle and we were halfway to Hawaii and we were talking once a day on the satellite phone.
And he's screaming at me in an email, get it under control. This is a catastrophe. And I'm like,
we're going to get to Hawaii and their pockets will be empty.
People were shopping. I just couldn't believe it, what they were buying. And
in the end, we didn't lose anything.
We didn't lose
because,
anything.
but it was a hassle.
Yeah. So.
highly recommend it. It's a great trip and
And we had the opportunity to ship the boat here, and we knew how much it was going to cost, and we had always wanted to go farther than just 2 weeks out in our boat, our whole working life. And so we decided, let's just go ahead and spend about 1.5 years bringing it here and enjoying the stops along the way. And that's what we did.
yeah, we actually cut back the number of photographs just to keep the talk somewhat shorter, but we've got some amazing underwater shots. I bought a pretty inexpensive plastic housing for my iPhone, and I could take underwater videos and pictures and stuff. And when we were in the Caribbean, we just got some fabulous underwater shots that unfortunately I don't have in this presentation.
Hey, Ben, I got on a little late. Was that Carnival Cruise Lines you were taking? I missed that.
Yes, we had about 50 people on the boat going, no.
Perfect. Listen, I've been quiet the whole time. Okay, over and out.
Okay.
Well, Ben and Debbie, thank you so much for sharing this fantastic voyage that you took. And
Sure
it
thing.
was really very informative, and we really enjoyed it. And it's nice to be out there in the world, on the water, even if it's virtually.
Yes, it is.
But thank you,
Yes, it
thank you
is.
very much.
Thank you, Gloria, for putting it
Thank you.
together, Ben and Debbie.
Thank you for doing our inaugural cruise. And we have another cruise next week. That's the Great Loop. So if anybody wants to see the Montgomerys talk about that adventure, that is next Tuesday, the 23rd at same time, 7 p.m. So same place on Zoom. You can join us then.
Sounds great.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight.
Thank you.
If you have any more questions, you're welcome to ask Ben and Debbie.
Hopefully we won't be doing cruising on internet for next 3 years, you know, like this virtual.
Well,
Hopefully we'll see you on the water.
February, March, and then maybe in April, we'll be able to get out on the water and be socially distant and at least see each other, but from afar. And then hopefully by the summer, we'll be able to get together and, you know, do the old fashioned cruising the way it used to be.
Excellent.
Well,
It was very nice seeing all of you.
Appreciate your time in putting this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben, and
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you all.
See you later.
Here, bottom right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
All people there.